Bring you then some breaking news tonight. The government has this evening, I quote, pledged to step up its efforts to track down, detain, arrest and remove illegal migrants. The Home Secretary says she's investing £3.7 billion into immigration enforcement activity over the next 3 years to include Northern Ireland. They say that this will see a surge in intelligence-led operations led by immigration enforcement and border force. There you go, £3.7 billion over 3 years. Many of you at home are concerned, should I say, about immigration. How does that sentiment grab you?
Well, there you go. This is GB News Originals. I'm Emily Carver. Please do give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. And do leave a comment. Let me know what you think.
Then, does it make you feel reassured or not?
How many people are going to be raped, stabbed or almost beheaded in those 3 years? As long as we have an incentive for people, I don't understand what they can't understand it. If people think that they can come here, claim asylum, live in a hotel, everything's paid for and eventually become a British citizen, I don't think they even care about that. They will keep coming. It's as simple as that. If they know that on arrival they will be detained, they will be deported, they will stop coming. They don't understand, and everyone works on incentives. That's it. And why are they not doing that? Why are they prioritising their rights over the British people? It is obvious that the ECHR, the Refugee Convention, is no longer compatible with the public safety of this country. It's as simple as that. Wouldn't you agree, Dan?
No, I don't. I think I would disagree with them that. I think if it was simple, then politicians of all persuasions would have done it by now, including obviously your two colleagues who failed.
Well, they tried to get out of the ECHR. That's why Robert Jenrick resigned.
As I said, that they were still allowing people, as we've seen, they were still allowing people into the country entirely separate.
But if you are bound by the ECHR and the you know the Refugee Convention, yeah, you know what it says, don't you?
Slightly going back over old.
No, but you know what it says, don't you?
I do know what it says.
What does it say? Why is it preventing us from treating illegal migrants as criminals?
But as I said, your colleagues were granting leave to remain to people who did not meet the criteria of an asylum seeker. So, and there were reasons they were doing that. But in terms
we can sit and talk about Robert Jenrick and Suella Braverman all night, which I know is what you're desperate to do. But let me explain something to you.
Well, I'm not desperate to do. I'm just. Well,
it's either Nigel, Jenrick, or Suella. So let's focus on the issue at hand.
I'm just pointing out that in my view, politicians of all persuasions have failed the British public in relation to immigration, and I don't think.
Would you say Andy Burnham's failed the public on immigration as well?
I'm not sure what role Andy Burnham specifically had.
Hang on, they didn't put. Okay.
You've asked me to answer the question, but what I certainly would say is that Andy Burnham was definitely a part of the Tony Blair administration that in my view sort of precipitated this crisis by using mass migration as an economic tool with, as I say, the economic, social and cultural impacts that we're all dealing with now. So yes, I think to the extent that we have collective responsibility, and Andy Burnham was a part of that of the Blair Brown administration.
So why should the nation trust? Why should the nation, in a crisis, in an immigration crisis as we have now, why are you backing him? And why should the nation trust Andy Burnham again when Tony Blair's administration precipitated Brexit? They didn't impose any transitional controls in 2004. We had the largest migration into this country. They assumed it would be in the tens of thousands. It was in the hundreds of thousands. The people that came in specifically undercut the very working class that the Labour Party is supposed to represent. And then Andy Burnham and the likes had the audacity to campaign for Remain and call anyone that voted for Brexit as bigoted or racist. And he still does. Andy Burnham still wants to reverse Brexit. He still goes up there and wants to reverse the very vote of the people he wants to represent, that he's relying on to win, are the very people that want Brexit.
Can I just say...
The anatomy of enforcement, the economic illusion, and the quiet erosion of domestic stability. The British public is once again being asked to accept a familiar political routine, headline numbers, sweeping promises, and the quiet hope that no one looks too closely at the underlying arithmetic. Welcome to Britain Underneath, where we strip away the parliamentary theatre to examine what is actually taking place across the United Kingdom. Before we dive into the numbers and the arguments unfolding across the airwaves, please take a brief moment to join our community by subscribing to the channel.
One of the things that I find absolutely bonkers, I've just told you about this £3.7 billion to try and curb immigration. But I was also reading today reports that our government is going to hand £5,000 to help with the costs of recruiting foreign workers. So none of this really stacks up to me because you've got a scenario now where, I mean, you've just been hearing Dougie Beattie at the start of the programme talking about Belfast and these jobs that have been lost and all the rest of it. You've got the highest youth unemployment rates in about 10, 12 years, something like that. We've got increasing unemployment in this country. This is really harming people, it's hurting people. And then we've got a government who seems to make it financially easier now to try and hire foreign workers. So on the one hand, you want to get tough and talk to my viewers about £3.7 billion. On the other hand, you want to make it potentially even harder for British young kids to get jobs here.
Well, because the thing is, foreign cheap labour is the worst thing for increased wages. And like you said, Dan, we've relied on foreign cheap labour for so long, and as a result, wages have been stagnant since 2008. There's been no skill investment, nothing, and it is not a free market. What we should focus on is if British companies cannot hire British workers, then the wages have to go up. Instead, we pull the lever of encouraging foreign cheap labour to come in and undercut the very British workers who end up on welfare, and we get a bigger welfare bill. It's such a vicious circle.
No, I completely agree with that, and that's why what I meant in my earlier remarks about the blame that the Blair Brown government has to take in relation to this. But I mean, there are issues in relation to this. Firstly, employers are going to need to understand they're going to have to start paying British workers a proper, decent wage for the work they do, rather than, as you say, trying to undercut them. And the other thing is, British workers are going to have to start doing some of the jobs that traditionally British workers haven't wanted to do, which is why we've been importing workers from overseas. Yeah, and
downright. And do you know what? If you don't want to do these jobs, because when I was growing up, my sisters and my friends, they worked in care homes. I worked in pubs. My other sister, she worked in fields picking whatever it was, cucumbers, whatever it was, this, that and the other in that season. So if you don't want to do those jobs, guess what? You just won't get any benefits. Simple as that. This is not really a difficult equation to try and square, is it? Look, there's more I want to talk to you about. I want to come back to that topic
Supporting this independent coverage helps us keep producing these critical breakdowns, and staying subscribed ensures you will never miss our continuous tracking of British public policy. Let us turn our attention to the latest figures circulating through Westminster. The government has recently highlighted a commitment of £3.7 billion aimed at stepping up immigration enforcement over a 3-year period. On paper, the mandate sounds resolute: increased intelligence operations, targeted enforcement, and enhanced border resources. Yet, as commentators across the political spectrum have noted, funding allocation alone does not resolve a systemic dilemma. The core of the debate centres on the structural mechanisms of UK border policy and international framework agreements. Critics point out that as long as legal processing routes, appeal structures, and international conventions remain unchanged, financial injections into enforcement act more like temporary relief than a structural remedy. The fundamental question being raised is simple: does an enforcement pledge actually alter the underlying incentives for illegal arrivals, or does it merely manage the operational logistics of an ongoing crisis? Simultaneously, a second narrative is playing out within the domestic labour market. While significant sums are allocated toward border enforcement, business and economic reports highlight ongoing policies designed to offset local workforce shortages through foreign recruitment initiatives. For decades, UK economic strategy has leaned on international labour to sustain key sectors, from agriculture and social care to service industries. However, the economic fallout of this reliance is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Analysts and commentators argue that ready access to low-cost labour has systematically suppressed domestic wage growth, deferred essential investment in local skills, and created a cycle where British workers are underutilised while national welfare bills continue to rise. When entry-level and seasonal positions are routinely filled through external channels rather than competitive domestic wages, the local labour market stalls. This contradiction creates a profound policy disconnect. On one hand, ministers emphasise border security and public reassurance. On the other hand, economic frameworks continue to encourage external workforce recruitment over domestic wage adjustment and skills development. The result is a persistent strain on public services, housing infrastructure, and community cohesion, while young domestic workers face elevated unemployment risks in an increasingly tight market. As public debate intensifies, political figures from all major parties find themselves under scrutiny. The legacy of past administrations, from the expansion of market reliance under earlier Labour governments to the unfulfilled border targets of subsequent Conservative rule, has left the electorate increasingly sceptical of strategic announcements. Whether the topic is regional by-elections, border security budgets, or labour regulation, the public is asking whether current policy represents genuine structural reform or simply a continuation of reactive governance. Take a breath, stay informed, and consider how these policies shape the broader economic landscape of the country. If you value straightforward, objective analysis of United Kingdom policy and current affairs, please take a second to hit the subscribe button. Subscribing is entirely free. It directly supports the growth of this channel, and it allows us to keep bringing you deep dives into the issues that matter most. Thank you for watching Britain Underneath. Stay tuned for our next release, and we will see you in the next breakdown.